Hey guys, I'm Brent.
I'm Lila, and you can find us on the web at www.braintrustlive.com.
That's right.
Welcome to the first week where we just stopped reading the news entirely. And so what we're about to tell you, is new to us too, as of today.
Right. You are now listening to one millionth of the people who have voted in this country.
That's right. And
maybe that math was right. I don't know.
100th of the people who have not really familiarized themselves with the news.
Well, we voted, so we stopped caring.
That's right. Just taking a passing glance at today's stories and bringing you a completely stream of consciousness version of them.
Right. Before this podcast, Lila and I were just talking about how people keep texting us and asking us how things are going. Or did you see what Ben Sass said about Donald Trump? Or did you see what so-and-so said to Amy Coney Barrett in the hearings today? And both of us are just sort of like, no, we didn't. And we will not see what it is. And we will only know about it the hour before we have to record a podcast.
Correct.
About it.
And there is only one. I got half of my news this week, midweek, from TikTok. That's how I found out Donald Trump had been dancing at a rally. And I don't recommend watching the clip. It's horrifying. It's funny, but it is horrifying. The only other thing that happened that was really important is that I found the world's funniest TikTok, which I'm going to describe to you, which is just somebody saying that they have found a video that they think about every day and then showing a video clip that is of a cop pulling over a guy for drunk driving and then putting him through a number of dance routines before she's like, oh, are you a dancer? Because he's like following her. She's like, pas de bourrée, ball change, like giving him like these dance routines. And then, and he does them fine. And then at the very end, she's like, are you a dancer? And he's like, no, I'm just drunk. And then she arrests him for drunk driving.
Amazing.
And it's the first time that I've sided with a cop in a video of an arrest. And it's the only video worth watching on the internet, and certainly better than the news.
Right. Yeah, everything is.
In any case, a lot of people have already voted. I think a lot of people are ready to get this out of their hair.
That, I think, is exactly what it is. It's like, even if you don't feel great about who you voted for.
Some of us had panic attacks on our way to the polls, literal panic attacks, real ones.
You can at least, at bare minimum, feel good that you're done.
That's right.
Right?
And then you can stop paying attention.
Just on a very base level. Like that is sort of like gives you a lot of leeway to, I mean, I had already voted by the podcast last week and I had not watched the vice presidential debate for this very reason. Not as if it was going to change my mind, it off. But like, I was like, what the fuck do I give a shit about this for? Like, I don't care about this.
I'd been putting it off for a week and a half. And then I finally did it. Felt terrible. Don't recommend. But at least I can only have done it once. That's the one thing.
That's true.
Is unless short of committing voter fraud, that's the only time I'll ever have to feel that way. Now, have I had to fill out other people's ballots via email for all of the rest of the week? Yes. All day, every day, it's people asking me how to vote down ballot.
Yeah.
The beauty of that is that no one has to ask me how to vote in the presidential race, because I would honestly not be able to tell them because it felt so terrible in my case. So I'm happy to help you with the DA race. I'm going to send an email with all of my down ballot picks so that people don't have to text me individually for them.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to even reference the top of the race, the top of the ballot. And I have a
especially in California.
Especially, well, yeah, I live in California. These are all California voters.
They're California
and
voters.
Also, I think I have a new idea for, after we've railed on the prop system, I have a new idea for a prop that I'm going to work on next year.
Yeah. By the way, listen to our prop podcast.
Yes, we did a podcast about not just the California props, but props nationwide. But if you are somebody who has been listening to confusing advertising about California props and want to know a sort of want to know what the extended conversation is about them, because obviously you only have so much room in what is already a 10-page prop guide in our case. We go in detail on the podcast, and we are happy to help you figure out your votes on those.
Yeah.
Do not call me about the presidential race. I don't want to talk about it or remember
it. Anyway, 22 million ballots cast nationwide. That's already 16% of the entire tally from 2016, and we're still, 2.5 weeks out from the actual election. And there's some interesting, news hidden away in that 22 million.
Yeah.
Also, because we know that Democrats are outvoting Republicans by approximately a 2-to-1 ratio in the 42 states that are counted in this. So there's 8 states that are not counted in that 22 million also that just are not reporting any pre-election numbers. So a lot of Democrats and Republicans were expecting like an early Dem avalanche because, for various reasons. A, they're just very excited to do this. A lot of Democrats are literally just sort of like, let me vote and let me vote now. And Trump himself has also been sort of, causing a lot of disarray with his own electorate about, how mail-in voting and early voting is fraudulent. So a lot of people think that the Republicans are going to be waiting until actual election day because Trump has made them think that they can't vote by mail.
That's like the opposite of what usually happens. I feel like usually Democratic voters are disorganized messes who don't love anything about voting for the candidates they're ever voting for. And so they show up at the last minute usually.
Well, and it's interesting too, because, there's been a lot of articles talking about how in various different states, especially battleground states, you have GOP operatives on the ground who are begging and pleading with their voters to vote by mail or to vote early. But they're running up against roadblocks because all of those voters are like, no, we can't do that because it's fraudulent, because, the guy at the top is telling them that they shouldn't be voting by mail. So it's crazy because you would, why wouldn't you want people to be voting at their earliest convenience or whenever they can?
Especially with an unpredictable pandemic on your hands. I mean, in a regular year, banking votes is already a great idea, but especially because any candidate on this ticket could say something insane literally at any moment and throw the entire election into disarray. Right. I mean, this is a real risky election we're running because no one can be trusted to just play it cool the whole time.
Right.
But also, you don't know what the state of COVID is going to be in your state on election day. I mean,
or just the state of 2020. I have been jokingly,
you don't know if your state will be on fire. You don't know if you'll have roads anymore. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen.
Well, yeah.
I almost never vote early. I hate voting early because I like to go on an election day and vote. And this year, I've been telling everyone to vote early because you might as well just first of all get it over with, so you don't have this weight on your chest anymore. But also, you don't know what election day is going to look like.
No.
There might be a tornado. There might be an actual Sharknado on election day.
Exactly.
That would be on brand for 2020. So you don't want to just leave yourself to that kind of risk.
Yeah. So it's good for Democrats on a number of levels. The other reason why it's good to sort of bank all of these votes is because then you know that you have them, and you don't know that you've necessarily have enough, obviously, and you're going to want to continue.
You can stop calling the people that you already have and call different people instead.
It is what has been made clear up to now is that the base and the rank and file members of your party are going to show up. If they haven't already, they are probably going to, because they are out in such force and they are really excited to do it. So you get to a point with 2.5 weeks in the election where you no longer have to worry about that. And then you can sort of start playing the game of trying to dig up some other voters that you maybe haven't found before. And I don't necessarily trust the Biden campaign to do this.
They've sidelined the exact people who know how to do this.
Right, exactly.
Because the people who know how to do this are the squad. AOC knows how to do this. Totally. That's how she won, is by finding new voters. The Democratic list did not win her that election.
Yeah.
So I don't trust that they know how to do this, but it's good news for Senate races who are potentially more competent.
Yeah.
Because assuming that there's not interjection from the Biden campaign ruining everything, which there probably is based on what I know from stories inside the Biden campaign that I'm hearing, it feels like there is room in some of these very close Senate races. I mean, in unexpected places like Alaska, to go dig up some new voters, which would be nice.
Yeah. So we'll see where that, puts us. My hope is that the amount of early voting, at least in the states that can vote before election day, and I felt very good about this because I heard James Carville say it this week, even though I don't necessarily think he's a genius. But there's a lot of worry from Democrats that they're going to be behind on election night. And then once all the votes and then Trump is going to declare victory, and Fox News will declare victory, and and then
we'll have two different news sources declaring two different victories,
and then a week later, Biden will have pulled ahead, but then it will be fraudulent, and then we'll have to go to the Supreme Court, and then Coney Barrett will be there, and that, like you're hearing all of that hand wringing. And while I don't want to dismiss that hand wringing, because I think that there still is a chance that could happen, I think the hope is that this sort of like deluge of votes is going to give us a little bit more of a clearer picture in favor of Biden on election night, which would be nice.
The problem is it's going to be like, we don't really know how to poll early voters effectively.
We don't.
And most states can't start counting these votes until election day.
Right. A lot of them
and
can.
So I think the states that can, though, they can only start like the day before or 2 days before. It's not like they can start 3 weeks early. I don't know why you can't, because why not?
I wouldn't know. Yeah, I feel like that should be a change that we.
I mean but it's never come up, because why would it come up? But I think there's probably going to be some hesitancy, even though we know that these early vote totals are largely Democratic votes. If there's not hesitancy in the media calling departments and the media data departments, there should be, because they don't have any clue how to poll this kind of voting.
No, they don't.
They don't even know how to poll regular voting. Right. They don't know how to poll anything.
We already know that 8% of the voters of those 22 million have never cast a ballot before, and 14% of them have voted in half or fewer than half of the previous elections for which they were eligible. So like, there's no way those people were getting polled anyway. So we've got almost 15% of 22 million who probably were not contacted by a pollster because they haven't been voting.
And that 15% is going to be largely Biden voters, because I don't know why you would suddenly find it in yourself to vote for Donald Trump this time after not having ever voted before.
I agree. Certainly not early.
No, right. You're not like running to the polls for the very first time to vote for more apocalypse.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Although I don't know, I passed a very active Trump rally in Beverly Hills yesterday.
Oh yeah, they're out there.
Yeah, they're out there every weekend. Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about this, because there is not much visible Biden support here, which I can understand because nobody is enthusiastic about him. So like, why would there be? But there is a certain amount of visible Trump support. I've been seeing it everywhere, because they're really like, this is their last gasp. They, as my friend that I was with yesterday was saying, like, they are going to have to go back in the closet soon. Right. So they really have to, it's like how Pride is much more exciting when you have gay rights on the line, because people are really proud then. Whereas, I went to Pride in DC last year, or I didn't go to Pride. I was in DC for Pride, and I had a friend who went, and I asked him how many people in Speedos there were, and he said none. And I was like, it's like, you guys don't even have Pride here. That's not proudness. I don't know what that even is. It's like a corporate parade that you had. So I feel like to some degree, there's a bit of trolling going on from the right, because if you are still in Camp Trump, you like really have to believe. Yeah. I will note that they were all using a beautiful public restroom that is set up in Beverly Hills in one of the sort of main tourist junctures. And I just thought the irony of them sitting there loving Trump while using these beautiful taxpayer-funded restrooms was too obvious to ignore.
Yeah.
They missed it, unfortunately.
They really did.
Anyway, so those hearings happened.
Yeah, this hearing happened, and
I watched 10 minutes of them, and then I thought, I don't need to do this.
I was going to say, you know what? And we are not going to talk about them in depth, because look, it's kind of what we said when we said that she got nominated, that we knew she was terrible. All of the things that you think about her being awful are true. And to get look, if it's in your nature to watch all of these and then be terribly worked up at the end of the day after all of them, then you do you, right? Yeah. But the thing is, and part of the reason why I feel like I have checked out on these to a degree, and this is sad, but it's true. She is going to be a Supreme Court justice. So I feel like I have saved myself the rage knowing that this hearing has now happened. A vote on the full floor of the Senate is going to happen, and she will be seated probably in time to overthrow Obamacare in the middle part of November. And I have come to
overthrow. I love the framing of the overthrow.
Right. Overthrow, right.
Like there's been a coup.
Right. And I feel
it is basically a coup, but.
And I feel like, while that's sort of a depressing take on it, here we are. And part
well,
of the reason,
it's like why you can't let yourself be worked up when you see Donald Trump say something terrible, because
sure.
it's in his nature to say something terrible.
Yeah.
So when you turned on the TV and he was on it, if you didn't immediately expect him to say something terrible, that was actually on you. That wasn't on him.
One person that you might fucking hope would be worked up about this would be the leader of your party on the Judiciary Committee.
That's right.
Dianne Feinstein.
You would think to yourself,
when you've come face to face with the person who might overthrow the Affordable Care Act,
right,
and Roe versus Wade, and environmental regulations, and voting rights, and LGBTQ rights, and gun control, and basically, end the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, and also be there in case Trump tries to steal the election.
Right, to help him.
You would think maybe it wouldn't just be another damn week at the office for Dianne Feinstein.
But let me tell you a secret. Every week of her 87 years and plus going strong, from now until forever, is just going to be another week at the office. If Jeff Sessions being the Attorney General was just another week at the office, I mean, she's a woman who is just showing up to work to be there.
Yeah.
It was like she wasn't even present for the hearings, because I think what was so interesting about the hearings, and the one thing that I will note from what I've heard about them from people that were watching them, because obviously my family was watching, my mom was watching them, obviously, is that, Amy Coney Barrett didn't answer any questions, which is a tradition that has now been started. But my mom did say something that I thought was hilarious, where she was like, even in the Kavanaugh hearings, at least we knew he liked beer. Like, she felt like these were so uninformative that we didn't even learn a random fact about Amy Coney Barrett in the midst of this. Like, there was literally nothing. Like, you would ask her about things that there is clear, Amy Klobuchar asked her about things and then quoted statute at her about that where, like, she would ask her questions that had clear answers, softball questions that are like, will you protect the legitimacy of the election? Is it illegal to, to murder somebody in the middle of the, like, I mean, it was like stuff that was like, there's obvious, like, written in layman terms law already on the books that says this.
Yeah.
And she would be like, well, I couldn't possibly know. Like, she doesn't know if she can protect the even the appearance of democracy in America. She doesn't know if she can protect the law as written about any of the, many categories Brent just noted are in danger of seeing precedent changed on them. Like, she doesn't seem to know anything.
No, I know.
And we were apparently, well, as people who were about to hire her for a lifetime job, that is a very prestigious lifetime job, we're not invited to find out any information about the applicant.
Correct. And Feinstein certainly didn't seem like she gave much care to press her on any of these things either.
No.
I mean, the entire week, she didn't really acknowledge, sort of like the unprecedented nature of the nomination at all. And then when she did, she kind of made it sound like her main concern was like being polite and having decorum, which, like, I was fairly certain we had all decided we weren't doing anymore. And she did say at one point about the confirmation process being rushed, she said, I guess to show power and push someone through. But then she expressed concern that the haste was breaching the etiquette of the Judiciary Committee. She said, I'm not sure etiquette is the right word, but then she didn't bother to come up with a better word after she said she wasn't sure that etiquette was the right word. And then she went on and talked about how great and wonderful Lindsey Graham was.
I mean, that was the moment where she lost her job.
Right. She said, this has been one of the best sets of hearings that I've participated in, and I want to thank you for your fairness. Thank you so much for your leadership. To Lindsey Graham.
She went and gave Lindsey Graham a hug.
She gave him a hug.
Mid-COVID, in a world in which he refuses to be tested specifically to hold these sham hearings.
Yeah.
And has definitely been exposed repeatedly.
Yep.
There was a day in California where you were allowed to openly wish that she died of COVID in the streets if you wanted to.
Yeah. And this is not, this is not new for her. We had to convince her that Jeff Sessions was too racist to be the Attorney General. We know what her run-in with the Sunrise Movement looked like when they came to her office last year. And if you're, questioning whether Lila and I are just sort of, giving you the rantings of two unhinged progressives, I mean, yes, that's what we do.
We are, but
also
we are joined.
We were not alone here. I
Right.
mean, Kate Porter called Feinstein's performance into question. John Levitt also did. And then also the Justice Democrats and the Sunrise Movement both called for Feinstein to resign. And yes, they are both progressive groups. But interestingly, NARAL Pro-Choice America called for her
They're
to
not
resign.
exactly radicals over there.
That is about as a mainstream of a group as you're gonna. I mean, they're a Democratic group, obviously, but I mean, like, you know, they're not like unhinged lefties over there.
They're like the HRC of the women's reproductive rights movement. They're like not here to step on any toes.
Yeah. So people are calling for her to resign, and she should. She shouldn't have ran.
She shouldn't have ran in the first place. She should absolutely resign. And whether or not she resigns, she should be stripped of that committee position.
Well, that's the thing that I think that, like, look, I mean, I'm not.
That's something America can do for us.
Well, right. And what I'm not totally surprised about this from her, because this is sort of who she is. But I think what is troubling about this, besides the obvious on this specific issue, is that presumably the hope that everyone is having here is that Joe Biden wins the presidency, we keep the House, and we manage to take over the Senate, and then we have 2 years to actually get some shit done, like post haste, with like, a little pep in our step, a little giddy up here, because we've got some shit to do, as you know, since the world is fucking falling apart. And the concern is that Dianne Feinstein has shown repeatedly over the last however many years that she is not fit for this time. And if she's going to be the head of a committee that is going to have work to do in the next 2 years, then it would behoove us to not have her running that committee.
That's right. And I think this is also it's bad for us electorally. I've been saying that for a while, because the just lack of leadership that we've seen on the Democratic side doesn't make us look like we're capable of taking the actions in the 2 years that we'll have if we do win all of these elections to do anything, which is, I think, why everyone feels so kind of like has so many mixed feelings about this election.
Yeah.
Because it feels like these people haven't shown us that they're up to this job.
Right. Like, what are we actually going to get if we put all these people into power?
Right. I would argue nothing, which is why I've had a panic attack on the way to the polls. But, you might feel differently, and that's fine for you. I would say you're delusional. That's fine. We're having a disagreement. But I do feel like, we have seen again and again failures in crisis moments like this from Democratic leadership. And this is a crisis. Like, this is a moment where this is so catastrophic that, we said this on the podcast before, somebody should have tried something. Somebody should have been willing to go to jail for this. Somebody in the Democratic Party should have attempted literally anything to stop this. And not only did no one attempt anything, but we have a Democratic leader in the party and the Democratic leadership in that committee bestowing credibility on the process, process that has no credibility.
And hugging Lindsey Graham, who may or may not have COVID. I mean, she's trying to get herself killed.
Well, I mean, and we are trying to help her at this point, because apparently she's not willing to leave in any other form.
I wish she'd have made out with him.
Right?
Would have been deeply disturbing to watch.
But also kind of fascinating in a surrealist way that I've become accustomed to. I mean, we watched Donald Trump dance at a rally earlier. At this point, no TV is too confusing for real life. It seems like, why not?
Yeah,
it feels like what a colossal letdown to have on the eve of this is the final frontier before Election Day for Democrats.
Yeah.
This is the moment where they say, here's why we are the ones who can fix this.
Yeah.
And they are not even capable of delaying a hearing.
Right.
Like, that's how
whatever.
Not capable they are. Inept they are. They can't even pull a dumb procedural move in a place that is rife with dumb procedural moves.
Right. Remember 2 or 3 weeks ago on the podcast, we went through a whole laundry list of things that they could do to effectively push this hearing and or the vote from the Senate floor. They have done exactly 0 of those things.
Zero of them. And instead, We have Democratic leadership praising the process. And I mean, this is a problem. You know, remember in California, our state party didn't even endorse her. I mean, nobody in California wants Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein has money and connections nationally. She's a longtime senator, and that is why she gets reelected. But there is no one in the state of California that is like, invested in politics that is like interested in having her be our senator.
Right.
She's been wildly out of step with the California electorate, an electorate that voted for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
For decades at this point.
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of compounding the insult that already California experiences in an election year, because let me tell you how often a presidential race addresses the needs of the people of California. It's less than 0% of the time. They spend the whole time running away from their association with California. Yeah. So we don't get a say in the discussion after the primaries. And we didn't get a say really in the primaries because they pulled a weird move the day of our primary and every other moderate dropped out. And then we have our, a not very popular senator running for vice president. So we don't really have representation in our second Senate seat. She's busy. And then the one person that we have representing the 40 million people in California in the Senate pulled this. What an insult.
Yeah.
It's an insult to the process, but it's an insult to her own voters.
Yeah, exactly.
Who are relying on, like, I'm not in the room with them. I can't do anything by going to I can do less than nothing by going to the ballot box in this case, because she's not even on the ballot. But I mean, like, I can't fix this by voting right, because I did vote right and I didn't fix it because I did not vote for her and she still is somehow my senator. Yeah. But also, this is a moment where voters need some action taken before election day.
Yeah.
And she is being paid by us to take that action.
Yeah.
And this is what she chose to do with it, is potentially die of COVID from hugging a Republican.
Yep. Like, bye.
As we said repeatedly on our special prop edition of the podcast, we saw a tweet that we were paraphrasing, but there's no more democratic way to die than hugging a Republican and getting COVID and dying of that. That's peak Democrat.
Yeah, exactly.
That sums up our whole problem.
It does. Oh, man.
In any case, the debate was canceled.
Right. We didn't have a debate.
The presidential debate.
So we had dueling town halls instead.
Right. Everyone's really mad at NBC for giving Trump a town hall at all.
Right. But then they sort of got less mad after they watched it, because American hero Savannah Guthrie is now on the short list of like maybe only one other person who has like properly questioned Donald Trump.
That's right.
Now that's a lot on the fact that Donald Trump is like not going and being interviewed by a lot of journalists who would be willing to do this anyway.
Think how many anchors there have been who've had in the 5 years we've been having to hear about him.
I mean, literally, it's like Chris Wallace, like once sort of.
Right.
And then that guy from Axios, and then literally no one else.
Not a single other person ever.
Except now Savannah Guthrie. Who for 20 minutes before she handed it off to voters, just really, prosecuted the shit out of him. She's a lawyer. And I would like it to be said that I probably said it on this podcast, but like she used to fill in on Meet the Press when they needed somebody, and she still does actually now. But I really wanted them to pick her for Meet the Press, and I contend that she would be much better than Chuck Todd on a weekly basis. I have to watch on your television.
Literally any single human breathing person, I feel like, would be better than Chuck Todd. That was such a weird, like, he's a goon.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that she should have been named the host.
Yeah, so I don't know if she went after him specifically because she is just a good journalist, which I think she sort of is, or whether I think she may have also, there may have been a little bit of a push for her to do so after the shit that they were taking in the few days leading up to that, after they offered Trump that night, because like he was the one who had caused the debate to be canceled. So it's like to give him any airtime when he wouldn't show up to debate Joe Biden is ridiculous.
Well, there were a lot of surprises that night, because another surprise was that Biden's thing got better ratings.
Who saw that coming?
I mean, I can't think of a bigger and more aggressive combination of boredom and terror than watching a Joe Biden town hall. It's like, it's incredibly boring, but you're worried the whole time he's going to have a gaffe and say something so wildly insane that that's all we talk about for the rest of our lives. Like, all he has to do is show up and not say anything crazy. And he is one of the few people in Washington who's fully not capable of doing that. And
he seemed to mostly
he held it together.
Though. Yeah.
He held it together.
And his was actually longer too. So he had to Yeah.
It was a surprise, let me tell you.
But
it was a surprise to me, especially in that anyone bothered watching it.
I know.
What Nobody needed clarity on his views. He doesn't have any.
No.
And certainly we all need clarity on Trump's views.
We do, and we didn't. And we got them in some cases and didn't get them in others.
Didn't get them in others.
But Savannah Guthrie, we're just going to go through a few of the things that she sort of like took him to task for, because Trump likes to quote this study that 85% of people who wear masks still get the coronavirus, which is not a logical number of things. Right, like that. Just think to yourself about whether that could possibly make human sense. Right. And you will come to the conclusion that it doesn't, and it actually doesn't. Right. To which Guthrie told him how terribly is mischaracterizing a study that doesn't say that at all. Yeah. He also, and we've seen him do this before, I think he did it in the debate last week, but it's one of his big talking points, is about how that there was a study that shows that he saved 2 million people from dying of the coronavirus. And Guthrie notes that that model that predicted that was predicting if the government did absolutely nothing. Like if the government chose to do no mitigation, then over 2 million people would die. So it's like they did do some mitigation. He did better than nothing. They did better than nothing. Right. Yeah. Is his argument. But you can't say that you've saved 2 million people by doing whatever like minimal amount of things that you did, because that's not what the study was. No. He also responded to some questions about his mask usage, and then responded by basically setting up a false dichotomy between wearing a mask and not going outside at all, like where Savannah Guthrie had to sort of interject and be like, people are not saying you can't go outside. They're saying you should wear a mask when you go outside. Like asking you to wear a mask is not going outside. It's asking, like, that's not the same thing as not leaving your house. Right. He doesn't seem to understand masks. And she referenced his rallies as an example of maybe like something that like didn't need to be happening. Right. Exactly. Yeah. She also was like, isn't there a middle ground between like downplaying the threat of coronavirus and then telling the country that everybody's going to die, which is another thing that he does both of those things at the same time a lot of the time. So that's that's always a question. But I think the two biggest newsmakers that came from this was that he declined to denounce QAnon, because he claimed that he didn't know what it was about. But then he knew exactly what it was about. So that was a weird situation that he got himself into. Yeah. And she noted that Ben Sasse has like denounced it as nuts before. But yeah, Ben Sasse is denouncing a lot these days, though. I know he is. Ben Sasse is working Trump's last nerve. Right. But he said he was like, but he insisted that they were like good people because they're very much against pedophilia. So he claimed to not know what it was, but then know exactly what it was, as you said. Yes. Yeah. And then also, this was the best part, because he has been doing a bunch of retweets of some bizarre conspiracy theories about like Osama bin Laden's death and like how it wasn't done by like the Navy SEALs that went in to do it or something. Like, I don't even know what it is because it's too out there to like even whatever. But he's been retweeting some of this stuff, and you know how he retweets conspiracy theories sometimes. That's what he's doing. Right, exactly. And that's what he said. He was like, that was a retweet. I'll put it out there. People can decide for themselves. So he was basically being like, no. It was just like me firing off retweets. And she said, well, you can't just retweet anything. You're not just somebody's crazy uncle. Which is yes, what we've all been thinking. Hilariously, Mary Trump tweeted out the clip of Savannah Guthrie saying, you're not just someone's crazy uncle. And she said, actually. So I appreciated that bit of humor there. But he did finally denounce white supremacy. Yeah, what was hilarious, the low bar. He finally denounced white supremacy, and then it was like immediately after that when he got asked about QAnon and wouldn't denounce. He always has to have some like crazy conspiracy theory group that is out in the world that is like looking for him that he hasn't denounced at some given point. Yeah. Yeah. Right. He likes to keep them floating. Yeah. He likes to keep his options open. Right. As far as conspiracies go. The other thing that we did not get any clear answer on, which is not surprising because this is what they've been doing for weeks, and I assume will continue to do until the end of time because they're lying about it and they're being shady, but we're not getting a clear answer as to when his last either negative or positive test was for COVID or that week of the debate, or just test it all. Right. When he got asked whether he had been tested the day of the debate. He said, possibly I did, possibly I didn't.
That's a question that has a definitive answer. It's not like, do you think that in the future we'll discover aliens? It's not like a conditional question.
Right. And it seems like there are people out there who could answer that for us.
And it's like, also not a question. It's like
could, but like others could all, like there are, it's not even just him that is keeping the secret.
Right.
Like, there's obviously like a huge cover up as to when that happens. Like
it's like he's answering it as if somebody has asked him like if he believes in God or something.
Right.
It's maybe not.
Yeah, it's how he answers what his favorite Bible verse is.
Right, exactly.
Remember? It's too personal to him.
It's too personal.
Oh man. She also had been diagnosed with pneumonia and he didn't give
We don't know.
Right. Well, he first didn't give an answer, but then he said that he didn't have pneumonia. But he dodged it for a bit, and then I think finally just settled on no.
It seems like if the answer is no, then your answer should proudly be no, if you're him. Like, there's no reason to hide that you haven't had pneumonia.
Right. I think he was probably in his head, probably trying to decide whether it sounded better if he had it.
Like more heroic.
Or whether it was bad that he had it and people would be worried about his health. I think that was just some sort of like real-time thought processing over like what was gonna work.
One thing that didn't get taken into consideration, I bet, in that thought process was the truth of whether or not he's had pneumonia.
No.
That was not a player in that process.
No.
The answer wasn't the question.
No.
That wasn't it.
But Biden did a good job in the sense that Biden's current job right now is to be on television and to like mostly say English words in like some sort of variation of the correct order. Like that is what people are looking for.
Running out the clock
right now. It's a purely running out the clock. He knows he has to be on television just to remind people that he's alive and on their ballot. But really, that's just about it.
And that's what it's been his plan since March. He's been running out the clock for months.
Right.
And
we thought maybe it wouldn't work.
Right.
And I think maybe it might.
I think it's the only thing that can work.
I think it is.
It's like how when everyone was like, Trump must have been lying about getting COVID because now he's trying to make himself into a hero. And I was like, no, that's the only play he has left. Like you have to think like, what's the play he has left? With Biden, the only play he had in the first place was to run out the clock. Yeah. They can't have him out there saying stuff all day.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for disaster. So all they can have him do is sometimes show up to remind people that he's a human being with breath and words, and then hope that during the 1 hour of time that he is in front of the public, he doesn't call anyone a dog face or whatever he called that woman, that he doesn't tell anyone not to vote for him, a dog face pony soldier, that he doesn't tell any young person not to vote for him, that he doesn't
challenge anybody to set up competition.
Right, that he does not at any point reference turning on the record player for your young Black children. Mm-hmm. All they need is for him to not do anything.
Yeah.
And they've been working hard to put him in situations where he doesn't have to do anything.
Right.
Because when he was doing stuff, we were constantly hearing about dog-faced pony soldiers.
Right.
So
and the one thing
this was the best hour of television that he's not fucked up in a while.
And the one thing that I think that Trump keeps not getting, which we talked about after the debate, that surprises me, because if he's good at anything, it sort of is like the kind of theater of politics kind of, you know? And I think that had he not done his own town hall that same night, I think what we would have been talking about for most of the next day is Biden's continuing dodginess on whether or not he's going to pack the Supreme Court or not.
Biden
but instead,
will dig his own grave every time if you let him. They never give him enough leash to do it.
And I don't think, and I don't think this specific subject is going to move votes necessarily.
It's a wash of a subject.
So I get why he thinks that maybe it's just best to not take a stance. But the problem is that the one thing that people do at least claim they like about Trump, and then also just broadly not like about politicians, is
they don't say what they mean.
They don't this idea that like he can be asked the same question every day for months and not give you a straight answer about it and think that that's fucking okay.
And the thing that Trump does is he gives you a straight answer that's different than his last straight answer, but he always gives you a straight answer of some sort. And then he also tells you, if he doesn't give you a straight answer, he explains why he didn't.
Right.
He tells you a strategy. He's an open book.
Right.
And this question, Kamala also suffered from it at the debate. They cannot get their line on it straight.
Yeah. And I think he has now said that he's going to have an answer by the election. And he is just waiting to see how rushed this nomination is. And then he's going to go from there, and he's open to considering it, but he's not sure that he likes it, and blah, blah, blah,
Let me tell you,
which hilariously is a better answer than he gave the first time.
Well, that's true. But let me tell you when isn't a time that I want to find out what the candidate I voted for's position is on something.
Yeah.
Is after I've already had to vote for them.
Right.
I mean, that infuriates me like, I would rather that he just doesn't tell us that he's ever going to have an idea.
I think what I'm starting to see is his plan. And while I get it, it just presents the problem of having to be evasive about it. But what I think that he would like to do is for after this to be done, it to have been rushed enough, which we know it is going to have been. It's going to have been faster than most, and we know that she's terrible or whatever, is that he's going to then he's going to ride everyone's rage over the fact that she's been confirmed to then say, yes, we should put 2 new justices.
Here's what I think will actually happen.
It presents some problems for him, though.
I would never trust. The reason it presents problems for him is because no one would ever trust him to do it. I agree. That's like, people have to believe you're capable of taking dramatic action in order to believe you're capable of taking dramatic action. And if you have spent your entire candidacy being like, I will never take dramatic action ever in any circumstance, even when it might win me votes, no one is going to be like, oh, good, he played it cool, and then we trust it. Like, what is inevitably going to happen if Dianne Feinstein teaches us anything? It's that people are going to be themselves no matter what. Yeah. And so something horrible is going to happen that does require dramatic action. And what this wing of the Democratic Party does in the face of that is nothing. If he doesn't promise dramatic action, I don't believe he will take it. I don't think voters will believe he'll take it because we have no reason to believe he would. He's given us literally not a single time in his life that we can point to and be like, he stood up when it was time. Like, that's not what he does. Yeah. What he does is doesn't take dramatic action. He's running on not taking dramatic action. His candidacy is him promising Republicans that he won't take dramatic action and telling his own voters that they should go die. Like, that is his plan. So if that's his strategy, it's the most insane strategy I've ever heard. And I think you're right that is his strategy. But it's the most insane plan you could ever think of in your entire life.
Then we need the follow through,
which no one could rightfully believe he has in him.
Yeah. But I do think that's his plan.
Well, I think that's somebody's plan, and that he was like, "Well, that sounds like a good plan."
That sounds like a plan.
Because then I don't have to say anything, and I love not saying anything about policy. So I'll just keep saying nothing as if I have a plan, and people will think maybe he has a plan, but I won't because I don't. And then, as soon as the moment comes where you're like, wouldn't it be nice if someone stood up? He'll be like, let's all get along though. And then he won't have a plan.
Right. No, I think you're right.
Don't ever believe this man is going to have a plan for you guys. Like, if he has not explicitly told you in no uncertain terms that he is going to act in a specific way, he is not going to.
Yeah.
We need it on the record that he is planning to do something before we should believe that he's planning to do something. Yeah. Don't ever let this man fool you into thinking he's got a plan when he doesn't. He does not have a plan. Like, I know that, listen, is that better than Donald Trump having a plan? Sure.
Yeah.
But that's a low bar. So just don't let yourself ever think to yourself, Joe Biden must secretly know what he's doing and he's just not telling me.
He doesn't.
He doesn't. He doesn't have a plan. So don't plan on him having one.
Yeah. Who does have a plan is Donald Trump, and that plan is to just lock everybody up.
That's right. His plan.
Going back to what worked in 2016.
This is a man who has insane ideas and shares them with us, so we always know where his head's at.
Yeah.
And his new plan is he's going to lock up the Bidens. No one knows why.
And lock up Hillary.
Well, yeah, we're still going to lock up Hillary. Is this the fact that he even bothered to add Hillary to this sentence to me is actually, I think, what's so damaging about it to him. Like, I feel like locking people up is his thing that he says he's going to do all the time. Like, that's a line that he loves. It worked great in 2016, whatever. Yeah. It's actually just like embarrassing that he's still caught on the Hillary thing. And that I feel like is actually what's so embarrassing about this. It's not Like, listen, of course he's going to try to say he should lock up the Bidens. His whole
Yeah.
their October surprise, as they planned it before they all got COVID, was going to be about Hunter. And it backfired because they did this huge release of information. And all we learned is that Joe Biden is a kind dad, which is something we all knew, because the only thing that we gained from it is that Hunter had gone to rehab and Joe Biden sent him a lovely text message. And listen, you'll get a lot of hatred towards Joe Biden from me on this podcast. You won't get me saying he's a bad father, just as you will not get me saying Hillary Clinton is lovely in person. I've said it forever and I'll say it again. And you won't get me saying that she's not. Like, I don't care that he's a good dad. I'm glad for his children that he is. But all that the Trumps have successfully done in releasing all of this information is remind us of one quality he has. And currently he's running on having zero qualities. So having a quality is better than not having one. And the quality is that Joe Biden is a kind and caring father.
Right. Well, that's the difference between Hillary Clinton. You know, it was easy to convince voters that Hillary Clinton was terrible. Now, that's an entire podcast of whether she is or isn't, and whether it was fair to her or not, that was an easy thing to have done. But convincing people that Joe Biden is terrible is like convincing you that this plant behind me is terrible.
Right.
Like, it's no. Like, how can a plant be terrible?
They're not focusing on the right kind of terribleness.
Well, right.
You know, with Clinton, with a woman, it's easy to character assassinate you based on your personal qualities. And so, listen, and I do think Hillary Clinton is terrible, but for policy reasons. And I feel like if you want to character assassinate her for policy reasons, I'm here to have that conversation with you. But I will forever maintain that she was lovely to me in person and has been lovely to everyone I ever know who's ever met her in person. She's not someone that was able to ride that wave because it's easy to character assassinate a woman.
Yeah.
It's not. Joe Biden is literally only good for this kind of retail politics. He's nice to people in person. Now, you could character assassinate him on the fact that he's repeatedly embraced policies that assassinate real people with their lives. And that would be a choice you can make. But Trump isn't going to do that because he is in bed with him on those exact issues and worse. So if they're trying to character assassinate him the way they tried to character assassinate Clinton, which was infinitely easier because she's a woman.
Yeah.
And with a woman, you don't have to worry about whether her policy makes her worthy of character assassination. Yeah. Because just being a woman makes her worthy of character assassination in this frame. Yeah. But they thought they were going to try the same bullshit with Biden. And it's like, you can't, as my mom said, the one thing he has going for him is that nobody hates him. Yep. Nobody likes him, but nobody hates him. Yep. You can't hate Joe Biden. You can hate him politically. You can hate him on policy, but you can't have personal animus towards Joe Biden. You don't care about Joe Biden. Right. He's just some guy.
Yeah.
He takes the train. He's from Scranton and he's some guy. And he represents the tax haven of Delaware, or used to. But like,
right. He's got a nice smile and he wears aviators.
And he had one son. He's had some tragedy. He's got a very sad life story. His one surviving son is a complete fuck up. And that's too bad. But his not surviving son was like an American hero, according to the DNC's the framing of the Biden children. But like, whatever. Like, even if he has a son who's a fuck up, and like, let's talk about who's had sons that are fuck ups. Bushes are famous for this.
Well, our current president has two.
And our current president is, well, that's a whole family affair. Yeah. That has nothing to do with it. But like, of political families, plenty of them have had children that are total fuck ups, and that's life. But like, all you're ever going to get from Joe Biden trying to zero in on Hunter is that they are members of a problematic aristocracy that the Trumps are also members of, where they are able to get really high paying suspect work for their children. But the Trumps can't claim that they're above that. So that's a wash.
They cannot.
And B, all you're going to find is kind, caring text messages, phone calls, and emails from Joe Biden checking in on his children, asking if they're okay and telling them that he loves them.
Yeah.
And every time that they bring up Hunter Biden, that's all we're ever going to get about Joe Biden's relationship to him, is that he loves Hunter.
Yeah. We're going to tell you really quickly about why he wants to lock Joe Biden up.
Yeah.
We don't need to spend too much time on it because it's
hilarious.
Too ridiculous, but it is kind of funny. So we'll tell you about it. So he's latching on to this article from the New York Post that came out earlier this week that has now basically been shut down by any thinking person, to the point where like Facebook and Twitter are now both allowing it to like not be shared. Like they're like
blocking the story.
They blocked the story. Like I think the New York Post can no longer post on Twitter until they like take this down because it's too crazy. But the article itself like cites unverified emails from a laptop that was abandoned at a Delaware computer repair shop that alleged that Hunter Biden introduced a Ukrainian businessman to his father, Joe Biden, but who claims he's never talked to his son about international business dealings at all. And we don't know what this meeting could have been. And the emails also had no proof of a meeting. There's one meeting that says that thanked Hunter Biden for, quote, the opportunity to meet your father. But this laptop somehow made it from there to Steve Bannon, who then gave it to Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, and then gave it to, and then the Trump lawyer, and then gave it to the Post.
Well, the story's even crazier than that because Hunter wasn't living in Delaware at the time. So the story basically alleges that he flew across country to go to a specific computer repair shop on the other side of the country for unknown reasons, abandoned a laptop with sensitive emails at this computer repair shop.
Yeah, we don't even know that it's his laptop.
We literally,
no
the story is so
anything.
Fringe ridiculous.
Yes.
That the only thing that we do know is that Rudy Giuliani is involved and that Rudy Giuliani was identified as a potential Russian asset.
Yeah, the FBI is now investigating whether the material in that New York Post story originated in a foreign powers disinformation campaign, which would have to do with Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah.
So like the idea that this would be a reason, and look, you know, the Post is owned by Rupert Murdoch. We know the Post is a ridiculous.
But they're garbage, yeah.
I mean, that's garbage, but it was written by a former producer for Hannity. The fact that Giuliani himself is at the heart of this, like, obviously calls the whole thing into question, knowing what we know about him and Russian disinformation. So the idea that there is any relevance to the story, or like that we should give it any, and that's why Facebook and Twitter, who are not necessarily great at deciding what is and isn't disinformation, have decided that this is disinformation because it's crazy.
Yeah. Trump also started a lock her up chant about Gretchen Whitmer, which is wild because they just foiled a plot to kidnap her. So he's really hitting the jail scene hard.
Oh God. So we kind of referenced the story earlier about Ben Sass being sassy, which is not that clever, but I said it anyway. Anyway,
it was lying right there.
It was, yeah. Anyway, there was some audio that was obtained by the Washington Examiner, another questionable place for you to be getting your news. But anyway, he was doing a call with constituents, which I guess is a thing that you do. I don't know. Anyway, but some constituent asked him why he criticized the president so much. And initially he kind of like talked about like his specific points of disagreement with Trump, but then he went like on a 10-minute tirade where he like went off on the president. Ben Sass
does not personally like Donald Trump.
He does not.
He is a man who does not approve of Donald Trump.
No.
Now, you might be wondering why he continually votes with Trump in important matters. And the answer is because he is also evil in a different way.
Right. And that's, I think, a thing to keep in the back of your mind as we go through these stories. And we will, at the end of both of these stories, sort of go on a
We're going to summarize
rant.
What you should take away from this.
Right. Exactly. But, you know, I think that we should remember that Ben Sass is not an American hero just because he proclaimed that Donald Trump kisses dictators' butts when he's been, you know, voting for every single thing that he could possibly vote for that's come across his desk.
But a few correct things that he said.
Yes.
The United States now regularly sells out our allies under his leadership.
Yeah.
The way he treats women, problematic. Spends like a drunken sailor. Mocks evangelicals behind closed doors. I didn't need someone to tell me that, but I mean, I have no proof of that, but I also know the answer.
Yeah.
His family has treated the presidency like a business opportunity. Correct. He's flirted with white supremacists. More than flirted, I would contend. But sure, Ben Sass has a different definition. That's fine.
I think he got to at least second or third base.
Exactly. He fears Trump's, quote, stupid political obsessions and, quote, rage tweeting will drive voters away. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
This is definitely the most stark criticism of Trump that we've heard come out of the mouth of any of these currently serving Republicans.
That's the key, currently serving. We heard a little bit of it from Jeff Flake, who we knew didn't really like Trump. And then
he basically left office because he couldn't handle this moment.
And that's who we've been hearing it from. We've been hearing it from people who are no longer in government. And Ben Sass, as a senator who is currently in the United States Senate, that's why this is.
Well, and his aides wouldn't even say whether he was voting for Trump. But I remember Mitch McConnell started giving them a longer leash to walk away from Trump because they were in danger of losing so many Senate seats. So you're going to see senators doing this.
Yes.
Because they need to win. And Ben Sasse is a person who is running for re-election.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
You're also hearing a lot of former White House staffers come out and say things about Trump that are not rosy.
Right. And there's been a million of these. Some of them have written tell-all books. Like we know some of them have spoken to the press about this. Again, always after they're gone, of course.
Right.
But John Kelly, his former chief of staff, this week made some headlines, and he said the depths of his dishonesty is just astounding to me. The dishonesty, the transactional nature of every relationship, though it's more pathetic than anything else. He is the most flawed person I have ever met in my life. This is a retired Marine general, by the way, also.
Yes, right.
So, and that got leaked out as a clip from a CNN special that is airing tonight called The Insiders, a warning from former Trump officials, in which a bunch of
all the people that have been kicked out of the Trump administration who are mad about it.
Right, exactly. John Bolton's going to be on it, former head of health and right, exactly. So, we wanted to talk about both of these stories because they both definitely made news, especially that Ben Sasse certainly took up most of the day's airwaves that got leaked. So, it was news, but also, we're going to be seeing a lot of this. Like you said, people who are running for re-election, like right now, or people who probably have a re-election in 2022 you're going to start seeing do this. You're going to start seeing it from people who lose in 2020. You're going to start seeing it from anyone who, is just trying to save their own reputation after Donald Trump loses in November. I think you're going to be seeing it from a lot of people. Even Mitch McConnell this last week has sort of is on the other side of Donald Trump in terms of this coronavirus bill they're doing. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Donald Trump loses that Mitch McConnell is going to say that he always knew he was, one of the world's most terrible people.
You're going to see them hedge before Election Day. And then on Election Day, when we figure out which way this is going, you're going to see them rewrite history.
And do not let them. Do not let Ben Sasse off the hook for saying things that we all know have been true for the last.
If he knew them to be true, then he could have made different choices as a person who is currently serving in the United States Senate.
That's right.
Remember that these people were the people that had the power to stop this and chose not to.
Yes.
So whether they knew or not that it was destructive is not the point. Their actions are the point.
So do not give any of these people a comeback story.
No, don't give them an ounce of credit. And certainly, let's not let this be Nixon Part 2, where the entire Nixon administration served in office for Republican administrations for decades to come, and everyone was just like, well, what can we do? That's who's experienced in Washington.
Yeah.
There are other people. First of all, don't give them enough of a comeback story to have them be staffing up anything, first of all. But if they are, make them find people who were never Trumpers, at least.
Yes.
At least.
Yep.
Knowing that that's even a scam, but at least that's a scam that isn't as scammy as this scam.
Yeah.
But don't let these people pretend like they didn't go along with this the whole time. They absolutely did. It's like, you you have to be not just willing to own your mistake if you are this person. You have to be willing to do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's what they're not going to be willing to do. It's not enough to apologize after you've supported policies that separated families and actually murdered people and all of these things. You can't undo those things.
Right.
So what do you need? What we need from them if they want redemption stories is not just a change of heart that they are giving in a speech. We need years of actions to make up for their actions.
Yep.
And I don't think these people are going to offer us that.
I don't think so either. They're not capable.
They're not capable. But this happens every time that there's an evil, era of politics, and then we never get. I mean,
a lot of them. We know that we give them redemption because a lot of them spoke at the DNC this year. So
exactly, we know that we give them redemption for that. We also know that we know how many Nixon officials ended up serving in multiple administrations years forward, and also we know how many Clinton officials that that were part of unsavory policy in the past that they shouldn't be proud of have continued to serve under Democratic administrations. Yep. This is how it happens. It is, Donald Trump came in and said he wanted to drain the swamp, and he obviously did not drain the swamp. But the reason that was an effective metaphor is because everyone is unhappy about this. And all we do is watch this revolving door of people refusing to stand up for what's right and then getting rewarded for it.
Yep.
And we should let this be the last moment that happens.
Agreed.
I don't, again, trust these Democrats to let this be that.
I don't either.
They're as guilty of it as anyone. But
well, I will say that is the first fight that it seems like progressives are teaming for, that they have already sent letters to the Biden campaign and to the Senate majority leader and that about who they are going to put in this administration. So I think that people are looking for that to actually happen. I agree with you. I don't necessarily trust the Biden campaign to do it, but they're going to at least be called to try.
Well, we'll be invited to a task force and then they'll just ignore the task force.
Exactly, yes. Oh man, so we are either now in the fall third wave of coronavirus, or we are in the continuing first wave that started in March. Like who knows? But we
have a lot of coronavirus.
We are definitely surging right now.
There's just a lot of coronavirus out there.
Yeah, the most since the middle part of July. Actually, on Friday we had 70,000 cases, and we are over 55,000 cases a day on average, which is up like 60% since mid-September. So it is getting dire out there.
Yeah. And so there's states,
and countrywide.
This is a nationwide thing. There are states where there's specifically bad increases, like Connecticut and Florida.
Yep.
Increased by more than 50%. 27 states saw spikes between 10 and 50%. Only Missouri and Vermont saw improvements.
Yep. And on Friday, like 10 states had their highest one-day counts ever. That's not.
And these are states where there's been inconsistent messaging about what to do.
Of course.
We at first, we were acting like this was somehow only going to affect blue states, and we obviously knew that wasn't a real thing.
Right.
But it really, the states that have been able to handle even small surges effectively are states where there's been effective communication the whole time, even when it's, there's been lapses. Obviously, Gavin Newsom is not some hero. Andrew Cuomo, I have words for, but that's different than what's been going on in, West Virginia.
Yeah.
So, we're seeing states, the entire middle of the country is a hotspot right now.
Yeah.
And we're seeing states that are not taking active, steps to resolve these crises, being the ones that are hardest hit. So it's not great.
Really.
One person who was really hard hit by coronavirus is Mr. Christie, who announced this week that those 60 days he casually checked himself into the hospital because he just had asthma and wanted to keep an eye on things were actually 7 days spent in the ICU.
Yes. He got remdesivir, which is used for like late stage
dire cases,
trying to like save people from being on
he got an antibody cocktail. So he got special treatment that you wouldn't have gotten, American person. But also, can we stop pretending that he was like, I was finally vindicated because this whole time I had been like, this man did not go to the hospital because he has asthma.
Obviously.
Like, I can't abide by a world in which he thought we would buy that.
Yeah. I mean, he might.
I believe he has asthma. I have asthma. It's out there. I'm not doubting anyone having asthma.
Of course, right.
But one of the ways in which he tried to downplay the cause of his hospital check-in was, instead of announcing the numerous high risk factors that he had for coronavirus, he tried to make it sound like he was just checking it out because of asthma. And they have not, by the way, they have shown that asthma is not actually much of a risk factor for a serious case of COVID. So even that was spreading a weird kind of misinformation, which was weird. But then it turns out, 10 days later, that he was in the ICU for 7 days. Yep. And now suddenly he believes coronavirus is serious.
Yeah. At least he got the right takeaway, because Donald Trump clearly didn't. Donald Trump was like, you shouldn't be scared of it, and it's a gift from God. And Christie immediately was just sort of like, no one should be happy to get this virus, which was like a clear, at least, shade at Donald Trump for saying that it was a gift from God, because he was like, it ain't.
No. But he also said no one should be cavalier about being infected or infecting others, which is maybe the first time that anyone in the Republican administration has announced that you should be careful to not infect other people.
Other people, right, I know. It's like the first sign of glimmer of empathy
Right.
that we've seen from them.
Only because he was in the ICU for 7 days can he access it.
Well, that's what always happens with Republicans and empathy, right?
Yeah, they have
like
to be
they
personally
can't
affected.
be in favor of gay marriage until they have a gay child, and they can't be in favor of everyone having healthcare until like someone in their family dies of an illness that they didn't need to, or what, it's like this is a normal thing that happens with him, that they can't understand other people's suffering until they have to suffer it themselves, which is how on so many levels we've probably ended up where we are as a nation.
Exactly. It's a sociopathic view of governance.
Yeah.
And sociopaths are running it. So we did it.
Yeah.
But he did admit he was wrong not to wear a mask at the Amy Coney Barrett announcement and at the debate prep sessions.
Yeah.
He even said, as a former public official, I believe we had not treated Americans as adults who understand truth, sacrifice, and responsibility. And I think actually, to me, even though that's a bullshit thing you might say as a politician, that was the moment that I was like, oh, maybe he does understand where they went wrong on some level. Because I think that I read, there was an op-ed really early on in the crisis, just after we realized that we should have been mandating masks, but we had already discredited them, that basically said people would have done the right thing if we had said you have to wear a mask, but hospitals need the serious ones, so go cut up a t-shirt.
Yeah.
People would have done the right thing because people are willing to sacrifice and do things that are inconvenient for society.
Yes.
We just didn't ask them to.
Correct.
And so now we're in a huge crisis, and it's because no one trusts us anymore, and it's because we weren't straight up with them, and we didn't ask them to make a reasonable sacrifice, and so now we're asking them to make all these unreasonable sacrifices, and they're like, no.
Right.
And that is, I think, been the basis of the sort of latter day difference between how Republicans and Democrats are discussing it. Yep. Where Democrats are saying, okay, we have to make some inconvenient sacrifices, and that is because we are asking everyone to sacrifice. And the problem is they have no credibility because no one has any credibility. Right. And so half of the country is not listening to them, and half of the country is militantly listening to them to the degree that they can't even understand what is a reasonable amount of sacrifice to ask of people, and is mad, they're getting mad because we're asking an unreasonable amount of sacrifice. Right. And so I feel like for some reason that sentence really I was like, oh, yeah, maybe he knows. But then I was like, no, that's just pithy nonsense. So what do I know?
Right. Oh, man.
But he's now in favor of masks, but also in favor of opening up everything. So it's hard to know where he landed on this.
Who can know?
He said every public official, regardless of party position, should advocate for every American to wear a mask in public, appropriately social distance, and wash your hands frequently every day. At the same time, we should be reopening in every corner of the nation under these guidelines. Sure. Whatever.
Another thing that is confusing is whether we are going to get another stimulus check before the election.
We're not going to, you guys.
And right.
We're going to tell you a whole story about it.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to either. And I'm starting to become more concerned that Nancy Pelosi is maybe overplaying her hand here just a little bit. I realize she thinks that she has passed endless amounts of stimulus checks, and she is not wrong about that. And they are all sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk, and she is not wrong about that. And negotiations have fallen apart with Steve Mnuchin because the administration is terrible, and she is not wrong about that.
Right, she's not wrong about any of this.
She's not wrong about any of this. But I feel like we are now getting to the point where, she's back in negotiations with Steve Mnuchin, and they're trying to get something that looks something like a $1.8 trillion bill that obviously doesn't have everything that she wants in it, and it doesn't have everything that her caucus wants in it, but it does have another round of actual checks going out, and it does have I think $400 uninsurance extensions going for a little bit. And there's some question as to whether she's going to take it or not. And she's even starting to get called out on it. She got called out by Wolf Blitzer, of all people, who is not actually even doing real journalism most times on CNN. Right. I usually watch CNN all day, and then I turn the channel when Wolf Blitzer comes on because he's a half-wit. Right. And I'm just a little concerned that she is trying to get a big win, and she's trying to play politics, and she's trying to play Mitch McConnell, and she's trying to blame Donald Trump. And I think there's a way that tactfully she might be able to get away with that. But there is also a world in which we all live where she gets blamed for not passing something.
Well, I was going to say,
that might not be fair. Look,
it's never going to be.
But the narrative exists.
And what they never can control is the narrative. That's
right.
I think the problem. And I think also it is up against this perception that the Democrats have failed to act in numerous ways. That's what the issue with the Dianne Feinstein, Lindsey Graham hug is it's symbolically the Democrats failing to act in a moment of crisis.
Right.
And so there is going to be willingness, people are going to have a willingness to buy in to what is maybe an unfair assignation of blame in this case, because everyone is waiting. The only people we have to stop any of this are the Democrats. And time after time after time, they just fail to fucking do anything.
Right.
And it's unfair that this crisis fell in their laps this way because other people are being unreasonable, because other adults can't be, are acting a fool. Like, I get that.
Yeah.
But also, there is a world in which you have to be willing to figure something out if you want to be the person in charge.
Yeah.
And I think even if it's being made impossible for them, there is an onus on them to seem like they acted.
Well, that's the thing. I think that
this seems so blatantly political.
Right.
And it's not her fault that that's how the process is, but it is her fault. It's going to be blamed. She's the only person acting.
Yeah.
So there's an absence of action going on.
Well, and that's the thing.
So there's nothing to even blame them for.
And I think what it looks for all the world like may happen is that Mitch McConnell is going to pass something that is not very good out of the Senate, but it probably will have something like another check going out and some sort of unemployment insurance coming out. It's not going to be the deal that Pelosi is working on with Mnuchin, which is wild that Mitch McConnell is sort of like not on the same page with the president here. We sort of referenced that earlier. But like, let's say McConnell passes something that looks vaguely like that, and that's all it has. And it's like maybe $500 or $600 billion, which is what it seems like he's going to be passing next week. If Pelosi should also pass that.
Yeah.
And I get that it's not going to be what she wants. It's not going to be what Democrats want, but it's going to be what the American people need when obviously the need is still very much there. You can come back and pass something more later. I mean, I realize that gets hard every time you pass something new, but coronavirus is obviously not going away. 3 months from now, we're probably going to need another stimulus bill. So if Mitch McConnell sends you a bill that sends checks to people, then you sign it, you pass it. I mean, she doesn't
sign it, and you do everything you can to make clear that it is you that fixed this process, even if it's not true. It doesn't matter. It is about getting credit. It is about something actually happening and who gets credit for the right part of it.
And you say things like, it's not everything that we wanted, and we wish that it could have this in it. And in our previous bill that we passed, we did allow for this. And
but we know how much people need this, and we did everything we could to make sure you got it.
Right.
Why am I not in charge of their messaging? Because I am a random layperson who is so much better at Democratic messaging than the Democrats are. And that should not be the case.
No, it shouldn't.
These people are professionals. They get paid money to do this.
Right.
We have harebrained schemes on this podcast every day that are better than what they're currently coming up with messaging wise. And these are not the thoughts of two people who've been sitting around, brainstorming.
It's not our job.
It's not our job.
We just came up with them literally right now.
Two crackpots on the internet. Yeah. Like, it just doesn't make it, the scale of their failure is so big.
Yeah.
And so dramatic. And I think that's what's certainly what's driving my feeling of hopelessness as I, have panic attacks on the way to the polls is the scale of the failure that we're seeing from the opposition.
Yeah.
The only opposition we have, the only people that are in the room, because we're not in the room, and all they do is tweet at us that we should do something. It's like, what are we supposed to do?
Go vote.
You're in the room. I'm not in the room. Like, don't tell me to tweet at you. We're just tweeting in circles with each other. It's like them tweeting at us to do something and us tweeting at them to do something. And all day it's just Democrats tweeting in circles about whose responsibility it is. And no one has stepped up.
Yeah.
Like, they need to look like they are capable of solving people's personal issue right now, which is that they don't have any money or food.
Right.
And in many cases are about to not have any housing.
Yeah.
Like, that is what it takes to be good at governing. Even if it's stupid.
Right.
Let us later blame you for not passing a better bill, but know that we at least gave you credit for trying something.
Yeah.
In a world in which nothing was being tried.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Those are our parting notes. Nancy, if you're listening.
That's right.
Nancy.
Do anything. Just try something.
Yeah.
That's my note to everyone in Congress right now. Try one thing today. Every day, try something. It may not work all the time. That's fine.
Yeah.
But this is like a moment where instead of being, frozen with fear that nothing is working out and the world is ending and you don't know what to do, you should just start trying some stuff.
Yep.
Some of it might resonate with your voters, some of it might not. You don't know what's going to happen. It's a wild time out there. But I would contend just trying literally any strategy at all is better than hugging Lindsey Graham. I mean,
that's it.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
And on that note,
I was going to say we should definitely end on that.
We should end on please resign, Dianne Feinstein.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.